In this video, we are going to be talking about two Rainer Werner Fassbinder films, The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant and Ali, Fear Eats the Soul. And my guest today is Olivier Surprenant, who is an actor, filmmaker, and writer from Toronto. Olivier, thanks again for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, man. So glad I get to do this.
Yeah, no, me too. As I was saying before we started, I don't know so many people who know Fassbinder's films so well, even though he's so popular around the world. So it's great to connect with someone who does. When did you start to get into his films?
I haven't seen that many, to be honest. I've only seen 4 so far. So years ago, I think I'm a big fan of Scorsese films, as you know, and I think I was reading up on The Departed and Gangs of New York or something like that, and I was looking at the cinematography, and Michael Ballhaus, who has passed away now, but shot most of Scorsese's films in the 90s and the early 2000s. He actually worked on just 20 Fassbinder films. And I had heard their name many times, but I'd never seen the film. So I'm like, okay, I respect his work a lot, so I'm gonna look into it. And I think it was 2 years ago, I watched a movie called Fear of Fear by Fassbinder. That was the first movie I ever saw. It was so human and real and cinematic. It felt like a director who just let moments happen. Like, it just felt like a really good director for actors, and getting to like real, like brutal truths.
I mean, I've seen a number of his films, but as you know, in 13 years he did, God knows how many feature films, a couple of TV series, a number of plays. I mean, this first film, we're going to be looking at The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. I just read earlier, he wrote this on a plane over a period of like 10 hours.
It's insane. It's crazy.
It really is. And this was a stage play originally. And then he shot this, it was very quickly too, like over a period of 10 days. And it's just incredible, the complexity of the characters and the story, that to think that this was done so quickly is quite astonishing. So, I mean, how do you feel about this movie? What do you like about it?
Well, it's interesting that you say that it was a stage play. I had no idea, actually, but it makes so much sense because it feels like it's one location, not just one location, but it's like basically around her bed, being like for what, 3/4 of the film, long monologues, and it just does feel like a play, but it works so well as a film as well. I think any Fassbinder film has, like, what I love about his characters is that they're just so, none of them are noble. Like, he's just so brutal about how human beings are, their needs and the loneliness, and I think it's just so clear in this one how lonely she is, and the kind of, like, behaviors and the trouble we get into when, like, we let our loneliness lead us, into trouble. So that's I feel like that's this film anyway.
That's a really good point. And just a note on the visuals. You said something with which I really agree with, that even though it was a stage play, it's done very, very cinematically, and that's true because the visuals say so much without anyone even saying anything. Like, just for example, early in the film, the Martha, who is, as you know, like the maid of Petra, and clearly just the way in which she's looking at her, is in love with her. Just the fact that they dance, 2 women are dancing together, just casually says that there's something, some kind of sexual relationship between them. And the whole time Martha doesn't say a word, and often, when the other characters are coming in, you constantly feel the presence of Martha watching with jealousy or with pain as her relationships develop with the other woman. And of course, that typewriter, you know, for the longest time, you just hear her typing.
Oh my God, it's so good. Yeah.
Do you think he?
It's so good.
Do you think? Sorry, go ahead. What were you
no,
gonna say?
Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned her because I think she's actually my favorite character in the film.
Me too. Yeah.
There's just so much being said without her saying a single word in the film. She's a fashion designer, so there's a ton of, like, you know, mannequins on the set. The mannequins, the way they're placed, they actually tell the story of their relationship too, which is really interesting. The two mannequins, they're kind of like in bed, which implies that, like, they're having sex, and then there's the other one who's just standing there watching them, and it's, you know, it's a mannequin, but you can see, like, emotion on the actual mannequin's face, you know, which is Martha the entire film.
Well, I kept wondering about that. That's the great thing about these movies, is that every time you look at them, you see so much more, because they're so, not only psychologically, but he's doing so much visually by placing those kind of objects that really say so much about how the characters are feeling. You know, even the fact that she's wearing a different wig and a totally different wardrobe in every single scene says so much about what she thinks of herself, that she's never just truly being herself, which I found that so fascinating, how they could do that visually. And, you know, the camera is, you know, sometimes I would catch the camera moving so much and it's not distracting at all. And as you know, with Scorsese, Michael Ballas would often have cameras moving, but it's never distracting and always feels so perfect and seamless. And he's just someone who understood the visual, the medium so well, but also not just making it purely a visual experience, but also having these incredible, raw, you know, vulnerable, complex characters and performances. It's just, it's astonishing what these two guys working together with these actresses and these stories achieve. I mean, it's unbelievable.
His use of paintings and murals in the background, like I personally love that, because he actually, you know, when the camera is not moving, actually, even when the camera is moving, it's done in a very tableau way, which is like paintings, you know? And he has just many paintings, obviously in Petra von Kant, the giant mural, which is never actually explained, but it just fits so perfectly. It's so beautiful, but it's still about the performance. The performance is first. You know, also you can tell how personal these stories are to him. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. But you're right. I mean, it's a perfect combination of, you know, because, you know, there are those filmmakers where it's, you know, almost very documentary cinema verite like, where it's the handheld and you know, the jump cuts, and I love that kind of filmmaking. And then you can have someone on the other end of the spectrum, very like Hitchcock, who's so very traditional, and it's all about the cutting and the way he shot it and the way he blocked the actors and having them look at a certain object, and that really telling the audience what's going on with the editing and the story. And then here you have someone who just has a combination of those two things, even though these were really stage plays, making them so cinematic, which is just, it's just astonishing to me that every time I see it, I see so much more. But just looking at this relationship, you know, because Petra talks about having two husbands, one that died in a car crash, and the other one, the relationship ended very badly. You know, do you know, because she mentions that her and her husband wanted, you know, they were so open with each other, and they wanted everything to be totally honest, and that's ultimately what crumbled. I mean, do you think that's because he found out that she was either bisexual or gay. Like he doesn't explain it, right? But he's sort of alluding to that, I imagine. I don't know what you think.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very possible. The only people that really she has in her life are people that she can control, right?
Right.
Until she finally, you know, it's almost like she sees love as weakness, and it kind of disgusts her, and she alludes to that several times in the film. But until she falls in love with Karen, and then it's like all her cynical philosophy just completely goes out the window,
right?
Until she's hurt again, and then it's back tenfold, right?
Well, that's what's so interesting about her, because you're right. I mean, she seems to be someone who needs total control of everything that she's going to show the world, which you see with Martha. She's totally in control of that relationship. In the way in which she can appear is in her control, the different wigs, the wardrobe. She's even lying off the top to her mother. That phone conversation, she tells her that she's doing something that she's not doing at all. So there's these constant facades, and then she contradicts herself by saying that, oh, my husband and I, we were totally open. And clearly that she's not someone who can be totally open, because then even Karen, who this relationship she has with Karen later, Karen says to her, you actually don't want the truth, you just want more lies. I think it's a lot of contradicting behavior and opinions, because she comes to this conclusion that, well, I actually didn't love Karen, I just wanted to control her. But then I think, is that really the case? Because she's trying to protect her feelings, because then when she tells Martha, oh, things are going to be different, the wig comes off, and I love you, and then obviously Martha liked that relationship the way it was, to be treated like shit, and walks away, so it's not it's not optimistic at all. It would have been one thing if Martha smiled or something, and it's sort of, she's again is totally alone. Like he makes you feel like this woman has gained some kind of perspective, but then someone who loves her rejects that perspective. It's really up to the audience. I mean, what is it? What do you think of that? Does that ring true to you, or did you have a different opinion?
I think she needs to be alone, because I think first of all, I am 100% sure that she's lying about her relationship with her husband. There's no way that she was that open.
Well, that's what I thought.
You said Karen calls her out.
Yeah.
But I think she needs to be alone at the end, because because from that place there's hope, because it becomes it begins at a truthful place, because she's actually feeling her loneliness, because she's surrounding herself with all these people, and I do believe what she's saying about wanting to possess Karen. I think that's true.
Right.
Hence, and I think Karen senses that too, and also Karen is using Petra because she can get famous, she can get money, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And also she's 23. You can't blame her for that. Not that it's acceptable, but she doesn't have the same consciousness yet that Petra has.
Yeah, she's much younger, and also at the same time, she's much more in a vulnerable position, because as she says, once people find out about my past, they hate me, because she's so beautiful, but she's had this brutal upbringing, and as she talks about her father killed himself and killed her mother, and she's in this relationship with her husband that's going very badly. So she's really someone who's pretty much on the streets in a way. And I think the fact that Petra was accepting of her and was not judging her and was going to take care of her and promise her things, I mean, anyone in that position would be like, yeah, of course. And
absolutely.
you know, I don't think that Martha is gay. I mean, she says that she she says that she likes her, but she has to sleep with men sometimes, and of course that makes Petra very jealous. I mean, do you think that she was telling the truth about that? I mean, they're clearly not. I don't think it's a matter of that they're not compatible because one is straight and one is gay. I just don't think that she really liked her. I don't know.
I think when it comes down to it, I mean, she's trying to survive. Like you said, she comes from she's very severely damaged, and she stumbles upon this too good to be true opportunity, so she takes it. But there's like an instant dramatic change in the dynamic as soon as Petra says "I love you," and she repeats it, and it cuts, and then not Martha, but Karen is now in the bed, because up to this point the only person that was like under the covers and stuff was Petra, and she's kind of like the queen of this castle. As soon as she says "I love you," like there's even a look in Karen's eyes that like almost like I have power over you now, and she kind of exploits it, you know. Because from then on she's basically treating Petra like Petra is treating Martha.
Yeah, she's treating her
really to grab me some gin,
badly. Yeah, when you see her, Petra alone, every time the phone rings, she's hoping that it's Martha, and she's crying, and then you meet her daughter, her mother, and her friend, and she starts to tear into them, like calling them all.
Oh god, yeah.
It's like it's
brutal.
Why do you think she responded that way? I mean, where do you think that was coming from?
Like, she has literally everything in the world. She's rich, she's famous, she's a well-respected fashion designer, and because she can't have that one thing, it's like none of that matters, and it just it comes from a place of just her loneliness and being broken herself, and it's like nothing, because I can't have this person, it can't be fixed. So like people who truly love me don't even matter, and like she just behaves terribly with her mom and her daughter. It's so fucking brutal. But I gotta say something about her acting though. It was before the moment where they all arrive, when she's on the phone and she picks up the phone many times and is crying and she's drooling and she's drinking and it's so fucking private. Like it's amazing, unbelievable.
Yeah, the actress is Margit Karstensen. A lot of their names are hard to say, that the people we work with. I haven't seen her in his other movies as of yet, but she's in a number of his films. But yeah, she's phenomenal as Petra von Kantz.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. And especially that moment, because and even the way the camera is placed, it's like you shouldn't be watching this. Like it's very it's like an angle that's kind of like it's tableau, but like voyeuristic as well. It's like low angle, not particularly beautiful, but still is. And it just feels like, we shouldn't be watching this. Like this is just so private, And I love that feeling. You can really see that the filmmaker and the actress, like, they really did their job,
it's stunning acting. And I also thought the fact that she got so angry at her mother and her friend, and it was also, because her mother starts to say, "Oh my God, my daughter loves another woman." So I thought, again, it goes back to the fact that she's constantly had to hide. I imagine the fact, she doesn't actually say it, but the fact that she's either bisexual or gay, that she's not been able to tell her family about that. And I think that really led to the wigs. I think that led to the not someone who can't be straightforward, to having these situations of total control. I mean, some people have felt that this was homophobic in the sense that she's doing it to herself. But I don't know if that's fair, because within the context of the time, to you know, this is in the 70s, it was not so easy to come out to say that, especially a famous fashion designer, publicly to say, oh, I'm gay or I'm bisexual.
I don't think it was homophobic at all. I thought it was just true. Like, it was true about herself. And also, isn't Fassbinder gay or bisexual? Like, I definitely know he's bisexual.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, he was.
Like, it just felt. That's why I said it. Like, his films are so personal. Like, it just felt like, you know, even though he looks nothing like this person, it just felt like it's coming from him and his own.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, a lot of the things that the characters said about themselves were true of him. Like when Martha, like when Martha talks about being neglected as a child. I'm not sure if you had read that, but he was apparently very neglected by his parents. They were very focused on very focused on their careers and on themselves. So I think certainly there's a lot of him, you know, him in this. But I just thought that, you know, when she blows up, I thought it really had a lot to do with the fact that she's been forced to have to hide. I mean, I think it made sense that the film is in these tight spaces and she's not leaving her room. Like, it's that brings you right back to that isolation. He was always interested in outsiders, you know, and people who can't be who they really are. He was a very controversial guy who was not afraid to take on controversial topics. But I think it's just an incredible film. I mean, it works on all the levels that we talked about, not only visually, but performances, complex relationships. And I just thought it was the fact that they did this in such a short amount of time is so impressive. I mean, I really loved the film. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about this one?
Well, no, I totally agree, but I still can't believe that he actually wrote this on a plane in 10 hours. Like, I know that he was like, he did a lot of speed. I don't know if that was involved in the writing of this, but like,
probably.
Man, even if it was, like, it's just brilliant. And again, like, he holds no punches. Forget the first character's name. When Petra
her friend
is talking to her friend, I can't remember her name.
So that's Sidonie. Sidonie,
yeah. So when they're talking about the relationship with their own respective husbands, and she says something like, "I let him believe that he's in charge, but I know who's boss."
Oh,
like,
right.
The fact that and just like, it's almost like I feel like if that was said in a movie today, that would be such a dramatic moment. Like, that would be such there would be a spotlight on that moment. Right. And that was just thrown away. And it was so true. And it was just it wasn't said with any drama. It was just like, yeah, this is the truth of a relationship. And it was just like, holy crap. And like, there's so many moments in Fassbinder films like that. You're like, did they really just say that? And like, you know, I just think that he's not afraid of telling the deepest truth of human relationships, and that's why I love his work.
Yeah, well, that's a good point you bring up, because you're right. He's always, you know, and again, Petra, you know, criticizes what she says. That's bullshit. That people should have certain roles in a relationship, or pretend to have certain role. But then she does the exact same thing with, actually, I just realized we've been calling, it's actually Marlene is it was her maid. Because I think we were saying Martha, Marlene, who's Herman, who's in so many of his movies. Again, just what a performance. I mean, I know we said it already, but to have no dialogue, but yet as the audience, you understand her completely, mentally and physically. It's just unbelievable. But a fantastic film. And if anyone hasn't seen it, it is on the Criterion channel. So I highly recommend it. Jumping into Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, which is, considered his best film, largely considered his best film. What did you think of this one?
I loved it. I thought it was, when you think of the context of that film, you have a white German bisexual, possibly gay filmmaker who writes a movie that tells the truth of German racism at a time where it was like even more, so it's like the amount of like, the balls that he has, even though it's a love story, you'd think that, there's going to be an immigrant and he's going to be noble, and he's not. He cheats on her. He cheats on his wife, and I love that he does that because, again, nobody's noble. Nobody is like the good guy or the bad guy. It's just truth of human relationships, and even her at the beginning, you're kind of like, she's the good one because all her friends are gossiping about the foreigners and that, and she has a different stance on it. But then she kind of like fetishizes him as well when her friends are over, and finally like they're friends again, and she's like, oh, look how strong and beautiful he is and stuff like that, and he just sees through that. He's like, what the fuck, I'm and he walks away and goes,
she even makes a comment when he does that, and she kind of she begins to talk like her friends do, like, well, these foreigners get emotional. She wants to be accepted, or she wants their relationship to be accepted so badly by her friends, by the grocer at the supermarket, by her kids. And I think she knew that people would be surprised, but I think she was shocked by the hatred. I mean, the things that people say, that her coworkers, her closest people say, not just about him, but about just immigrants in general, which unfortunately people still say to this day. They're coming here to go on welfare, they're lazy, and they're talking about them as if they're animals, and really literally saying that. And I just, see how she is just absolutely shocked and really breaks down. I mean, I love, again, visually how they always place them when they're together totally alone in these big spaces. And like when they go to the restaurant after they get married, and it's that
it's so good
wide shot of, and just hangs on them sitting there, not being the waiter is not being very polite, and then in that outside patio later on when she really starts to break, and again it's that wide shot of all those chairs around them and no one wants to even go near them. Again, I mean, those shots say so much. It's just it's breathtaking how, again, it's working psychologically and from a visual standpoint, as well as from what the actor, particularly the actress who plays his wife. I just want to get her name up because she was so, Bridget Mira, who plays Emmy. I mean, she was just incredible.
And who's also another of his recurring actors in his films. But I'm glad that you brought up that scene, because that's so brilliant, because for many different reasons. But it's interesting because the women at work, they talk about the foreigners as if just like, he even says it, like German is the master, Moroccan is the dog, and like they talk about it as if like they're in a different social class or something like that, and they're cleaning ladies.
That's right.
I mean? And he's a mechanic.
Yeah.
So it's like as if they were talking like they're these like, you know, billionaires or like there's actually a giant class gap.
That's true. I didn't think of that. That's a good point. Yeah.
And it's very apparent in that scene because, you know, they're married, they're excited, they go to the restaurant which Hitler used to go to all the time, and
which again is so ironic.
It's such an interesting way because she says it with almost like pride.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Even though you can tell that her character doesn't subscribe to any of those ideologies,
right?
But there's still a kind of like weird German like pride about it.
Yeah. Well, it's built. It was probably so built into them. That she also comments, I believe, that her father was a Nazi or someone very close to them was in the party. So it's probably just it's built in there, you know, from an early age.
That's
I
it.
imagine.
That's it.
You know, because this is 30 years after Hitler had killed himself, right? So, it's still very much in the air.
That's it. And the class thing is so apparent when they order the, you know, because they're excited. She's like, we're gonna splurge because we're married and go to this expensive restaurant, and the waiter is just clearly like, you know, different class than both of them. And, you know, she orders things off the menu that she doesn't even know what they are. And she doesn't know how to properly order them because she's clearly never been in a restaurant like this, just like him.
Do you think that he really loved this woman, or do you think it was a matter of also being, you know, he was someone who said, well, I don't want to think, he just wants to work, and he's sort of going through the motions and accepting things as they are, but at the same time he's living in a cramped apartment and she's helping him. She says, well, you can move in here, and so he's gaining from her. I don't think he was totally using her. I think he actually had an affection for her. Yeah. But I sometimes wonder if this is truly a love story. I don't know. I mean, what did you think?
It's interesting because when you think about it, it's a very similar. I mean, there are elements that are similar to Petra von Kant.
There is
Karen and Petra, and just because like you said, he comes from like the alternative of his life is just awful, you know, and he actually, you know, gets taken care of and gets nice meals and things like that, but I do think that I don't think he's using her. I think it may start off that way, and also just the fact that like there's kind of a language barrier, so there's certain things that I feel like he just goes along with because he doesn't know how to like properly express himself, because his German is limited.
Right.
But I think he's stumbled across a person, a German, who finally treats him like a person.
Yeah, which, you know, what was so great off the top, again, talking about Michael Ballas and Fassbinder, again, visually says they did so much when the old woman comes into the bar and just stares at everyone, and then they cut to all of the of Ali and his friends staring right back, and they're cutting back and forth.
Oh, dude, it's so good. And
you know right there what everyone's thinking. You know that they're thinking, what the hell is this German woman doing in here? And the bartender doesn't treat her well either. You know, she orders a Coke. They're very cold towards her. And again, you see that same shot when Ali meets her family, and, you know, the camera is cutting back and forth.
Oh my God, that's the best scene in the film. Scene.
And that goes all the way back to, you know, Hitchcock talked about that's very early. I mean, people still use that, but it's a little less, it's less practiced than it used to be, Whereas as you know, someone who's a filmmaker, you know, you cut to a person's face, then you cut to a baby, cut back to their face, and you think, oh, this person's so nurturing. And okay, same face, and then food, and then cut back, oh, this person's hungry. So you are putting it together with the images, and that is exactly what he did there. So often with just the looks, the cutting, the back and forth, and forth. And I love that opening shot because no one says anything and everyone is just staring, you know, and it's a great, for actors out there, it's a great lesson when you have to, when a director just says, look here, you know, because I'm sure you've seen this too. I've had directors say, you know, just look there. And then I've seen actors, well, what do you want me to do? Don't do anything.
Right.
Just look.
Yeah.
You know, and the audience will fill in the gaps.
But they are doing something though. They are doing something because they're not just looking. They're like there's a certain way they're looking as well to you know, the way she comes in and stuff like that. It's
her family for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's somewhat neutral, but if you look at her, I found with her family, and of course Fassbinder plays like the angry son-in-law.
So good.
You know, they have more of like a, you know, they look shocked or like disgusted. I found, and it's not that one's better than the other. I found with the people in the bar were very much more neutral, and I think if you really looked at this, and this is just my opinion, if you really looked at the actor who, as I'm sure you know, was Fassbinder's lover, and you know, he committed suicide, the actor who plays Ali, El Hadid,
I didn't know that,
was someone who likely was either gay or bisexual. He had a marriage, had children. He apparently stabbed some people in Paris. He didn't kill anyone, but stabbed some people.
Holy shit.
Got arrested and hung himself. But they were lovers apparently. And if you really look closely at the moments when he had to bring more to it, like when he's in the bar and someone insults his wife and he grabs them, it's very forced. You know, there's not much going on with him. He's so still. But at the same time, it was perfect for this character because the guy was someone who didn't want to think, who was very simple-minded, and really just his presence and the way in which it was blocked and edited said so much about him wanting to be basically accepted by people there, and how no one will do it simply because he's a foreigner. What I also find so tragic is that, you know, I think if this was a commercial film, a Hollywood film, it would have likely been done differently, because when people start to come around and not be so hateful, is only because they start to see what they can get from them. You know, the grocer all of a sudden, you know, as we saw earlier on, he refuses to even sell to this guy because he's from Morocco. But then later on, when he realizes, oh my God, I lost my customer for 20 years, and then he's nice because he wants money. And the only reason one of the sons come around is because he needs something from his mother. And then the people in the building they start to like him because he's helping her move.
Storage space.
So I think if it was a Hollywood film, it would have been more from a place of consciousness where, oh yes, we're wrong. How could we have done this? But here, you know, Fassbinder's saying no. It's because they see something useful in them, you know, which is terrible that you're only accepting of someone because you can use them for something. You know, instead of just seeing that they're human and they should be treated with respect and love no matter what. You know, so that's what's so. I mean, it's cynical, but unfortunately, that can be the case often. Even in the end, we see when he has this, was a stroke, right? Or no?
No, he had an ulcer burst in his stomach.
Ulcer, yeah, and that was the doctor even said it was common with immigrants because of the trauma that they often experienced in a different society. And here's a guy who says he doesn't want to think, and he's just kind of ignoring everything, and likely and that last shot, is, because you think that they're going to break up and they start to come together. But no, I mean, Fassbinder could have ended it with them, dancing, and it would have been a more optimistic ending when they, in the bar, when they start to, after all the cheating and stuff. But no, he's like, no, it's not going to be that easy. They may be together, but it's going to be a rough road, and to see them in the hospital at the end.
At one point where I think it's the first time or the second time, right after they got married, and Emmy is with with Ali and all his friends, and they're like laughing at the bar, and then the bartender and the other girl are like, jealously looking at them, enviously looking at them, and she says like, she calls them names under her breath and says, it's not gonna last. And then the bartender's like, well, of course it's not gonna last. Like, it's never gonna work. She says, right. It's never gonna work. And then the other bartender's like, of course it's never gonna work, but like, so what?
Yeah.
And I thought that was great. Like, that's a very, it's like a very cynical way of like adding optimism in the film, because it's almost like better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. Even though he's in the hospital and it's going to happen again in 6 months, the doctor says like it's just a recurrent thing, this ulcer thing, because that's the way of life for these people. There's still like, I don't know, there's something beautiful about their relationship, because they're still like, they get, he goes away, he sleeps with that woman, she gets his couscous, and they come back together, and she's aware that he's 20 years younger, and like, she's not delusional about that. And she, in that moment, she forgives him, and she's like, you can do what you want, but just come back to me, because I need you. And he does tell her that, she's the only woman that he loves. And I think that's absolutely true. I think he truly means that.
Yeah.
But another really great thing, because the first time that they meet, he says that thing about, the difference between the Germans and the Moroccans or foreigners. And he says, the Germans are the master, and the Moroccans are, treated like dogs. And then right before that scene, he's in the mirror, like beating himself, slapping himself in the face like a dog.
Yeah.
Society creates that reality for you, but like, it's also like, once you start believing that yourself, you'll always feel that way. You begin to believe. I wondered about why that was, and you're probably right, because I was wondering, why did he do that? And it's a good point, because I think he really, a large part of him believes that. I think so. I mean, Fassbinder's a fucking phenomenal writer. So of course, like, there's like ties in, like, if he sets up something, of course he's gonna. It's gonna come back later. Yeah, nothing's random. Everything is there for for a reason, even if it's up to you to interpret. Mm-hmm. He has his reason. He always has his interpretation, and he's including the audience in having their own feelings about that. But it's such a wonderful film, and from the films I've seen it's certainly my favorite. I think it's just incredible. All right, well, Olivier, thanks so much. I'm glad that you came on the podcast today to talk about these two films. Dude, such a pleasure, man. Thank you. I like, anytime, for real, anytime you want to do this again, I would 100% be down. Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd love to have you back, and I'll certainly be in touch again. But no, it's been a pleasure, and I really liked your takes. There's a lot of things, some things you said I hadn't thought of before, which these films really
they require these kind of
there's so
dialogues.
much. There's so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you watching, thanks so much. And if this is your first time on my podcast, please consider subscribing. You'll see the Robert Bellissimo at the Movies floating above my head right here to your top left. Just click on that. It's absolutely free to subscribe, and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release a new video or when I go live. Thanks so much, folks. I'll see you in the next video.